2, 3, 4.
What's up? This is Eric with the Thehauntological Society. I'm here introducing myself for the very first time in this brand new podcast. This is a podcast about paranormal, all things weird, talking UFOs, Bigfoot, aliens, ghosts, poltergeists, demons, you name it, we want it all. I want everything that's weird. Nothing is too weird for me. Let's just get it done, see how weird we can get it here. So, before we get started, I'd like to bring in my sidekick here. I don't know how long she's going to be helping me out because I'm sort of strong-arming her to do this. But,
I like being strong-armed. It's okay.
That voice you hear right there, that's the mother of my child, the person I share a bed with every night. We're together 24/7. Her name is Wendy. Say what's up.
What's up, guys? Good to be here.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
So we're going to be talking about some weird paranormal stuff. I got a pretty big idea of what I want to do for the very first episode. And I may even turn it into a 3-parter. Just so once we start it, go big, go home, right?
That's right.
That's what they say.
See if we can take home the gold.
Yep. We're going to take home the gold, but not the gold card. So anyway, before we get started, Wendy, I do have something I want to ask you.
Okay.
So you have a very cool story that you told me before. Mm-hmm. With you and Joy, and it took place at your grandmother's house.
Yes.
So, I think for us to get started and for kind of introduce ourselves, I think it would be very cool if you told your story. Don't spare the details.
Okay. So, as a child, I stayed with my grandmother a lot, and she moved into a huge Victorian 2-story home in town. The whole upstairs was never used because it was a really big house. And at night we would hear footsteps walking around upstairs. Now, remember, I'm 8 or 9 years old, so I'm wondering who's upstairs. And I remember my granny not allowing me to get out of bed at night. Maybe because she knew that there was no one up there. Broad daylight, we're at her house, and aunt and uncles are over. We're just kind of chilling in the living room because everybody come over on Sundays. We hear a really loud ruckus and go out, and there are books all down the staircase. One book is like laying open, face down, and when I picked it up, there was a finger fixing to ring a doorbell saying, "You have had a visitor." So, had I not been there and experienced that and heard it from someone else, I would probably call bullshit. But I was there, I witnessed it along with 10, 15 other family members. So
What kind of book was it?
it was like those books that like Mormons or
It was like a watchtower. Is that what it was?
but it was a hardback.
Yeah.
And I mean, there was no title. It's just the chapter happened to be, "You have had a visitor." That's what it was open on. And from then on, I was like, holy shit, now I know what these footsteps are. And so I don't know if it was an effort to scare her out of the home, which it eventually did. Mm-hmm. But there was also a bed upstairs that had been there since the home, I guess, had been sitting empty. and supposedly a woman's husband had went off to war, died in combat, and never made it home, and she basically died of a broken heart in that bed.
That you had that bed in the house?
It was upstairs in that room. That's the only furniture that was upstairs in the 4 rooms.
Okay, hold on. I didn't know this. So you
Yes.
had a bed upstairs. Her husband went to World War II or whatever, and he died in the war,
Yes.
and she died
in
from
combat.
and she died from a broken heart.
Yes. It's basically like she gave up.
Yeah.
Her will to live was no longer there, so she disintegrated, and the bed that she passed away in was upstairs in one of the rooms.
I was wondering about that. So that makes sense. So you think that's who was like in the house?
Probably, yeah.
Did your grandma ever see her?
Yes.
Did she tell you?
Yes.
What would she tell you?
Well, we would also encounter, like, the windows would be open when no one was in the room, and my granny always, kept the windows down or whatever. The cabinets would be open. We could hear silverware rattling around, and it was really weird because each room was like individual, and it had a door that shut it. There was a lobby with the stairs that went, a foyer. The stairs went up to the second level, and then you could go back into like the kitchen and the bathroom. And she saw her at the kitchen sink, like, I guess where she would be washing dishes and looking out the window.
Oh, like she was waiting for him to come home.
Or
Wow.
kind of like her routine, like standing there at the kitchen sink looking out, at the window.
I can picture her standing there waiting for him to come home from war, looking down the street, seeing because like back in the days, like, the town was a lot more open and stuff back then, so she could probably like see cars coming down the road.
Yeah, most definitely.
Every time a car came down that looked like a government car, she was probably like heartbroken, afraid that something had happened to him. Just like, and it's like you see it like a movie, like somebody always standing there looking out the window. Then that one day, the car pulls up with a couple like
Cops.
Military in like full uniform. That's terrible.
But as a woman, also, I know I guess you kind of hold out hope that maybe they got the wrong person, and he will still return.
He'll show up.
Yes, he will come back.
Yeah. That's crazy. I did not know that about that story. So that puts a pretty interesting. You never saw like an apparition or anything in the house?
I think I kind of figured out what was going on, and I didn't explore it and didn't want to. So
You didn't push it.
No.
No.
But I do know that like her bedroom was at the bottom of the steps.
The woman, not your grandma.
My grandmother's bedroom was at the.
That's where the bed was. In her room.
It was upstairs.
Yeah, upstairs. Okay.
My grandmother's bedroom was downstairs at the foot of the steps, and we could hear someone like walk. You could hear footsteps coming down the stairs, up the stairs, and so when they would come down before they went back, it was almost like you felt like they were standing outside your door.
Oh yeah, so you kind of feel it.
Yes.
No.
So, as a kid, I always like covered my head, and because I didn't want to see it then.
Knowing what you know now, and what we've like, all the paranormal stuff I force you to watch, and all the things that we get into, and
That
everything.
I now enjoy.
Yeah. Do you think maybe now it could have been residual, or do you think she was like intelligent? She knew what she was doing.
Both.
Maybe both.
Maybe the footsteps were residual because the bed was up there,
Yeah.
which would be why she climbed the stairs to go to bed, her bedroom.
Yeah.
But the silverware and the windows and stuff like that could have possibly been from another family after
Okay.
her, because it was a very old home.
So you're saying you think there might have been multiples in there?
Yes.
And
Yes.
did you get the feeling it was multiple people?
Yes, because the stair climbing had more of a click, like a professional shoe
Yeah.
or heels. The other was more of like trying to scare you with like the silverware. Why would you pull all the silverware out unless you're wanting to be noticed?
So you felt they pulled the silverware out to try to scare you?
Yeah,
Okay.
most definitely.
Did they ever like shake your bed or pull your covers off or anything?
No, not
No.
that I'm aware.
Okay. That's interesting. Did you say the cabinets would open?
Yes, when the silverware drawers would be open, the cabinets would be open.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of, that's a creepy thing to walk into,
Yeah.
especially at 7 or 8 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So
There was no, I had a similar experience one time. A friend of mine lived in this house. It was an old 2-story brick building, and there was an upstairs. It was weird because there was an upstairs, a downstairs, and it was almost like there was a loft above the upstairs, which almost looked like almost like a tower. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
And you could like, you kind of went up these spiral stairs, and when you got up there, it was like wooden floors, but you were like, it was a third floor without a third floor, and you could kind of like, it was almost like a lookout or something. You know,
crow's nest.
kind of like that, yeah.
Okay.
And but the house, like I said, was built straight up. Like the living area was downstairs, and there was a kitchen, and it had a basement too, where the laundry hookup was, with kind of dirt floors. So the basement wasn't completely finished. But then the second floor was where all the bedrooms were, and then the crow's nest. There was really nothing up there, and I was there one day, and I had walked into the basement, and then when I walked into the basement, I was down there maybe 2 minutes, turned around, and came right back out, and every cabinet door, every drawer was open and pushed out. And it was weird because like I never heard like footsteps. I never heard anybody run in there to shuffle and pull them out. And,
Right.
it was just like instantaneous.
I feel like that might be a little bit more intentionally trying to scare you there.
Yeah, that haunting was crazy because the people that lived in the house, they were very there was some toxic things going on, and when fighting and stuff would happen, it would be like a burst of energy. It was like everything would just go bam.
Poltergeistish.
Kind of like a poltergeist.
Okay.
It's definitely like, but that house held a lot of energy. I don't know any history in that house, and I've never looked it up, but yeah, it's real scary when that pops out on you like that.
Well, also like the woman, as an example, a woman may be getting beaten,
Yeah.
and that's going to send off, some bad energy
Yeah.
whatever. But if there's children involved, them watching or hearing this happen also is another layer of like static. You know what I'm saying?
Children are a whole different level altogether because there's
Right.
so much like hormones and I think their energy situation is a little more explosive. It kind of mellows out as you get older, and so even dudes when they're like younger, they got all that testosterone and stuff. They have more tendency to blow up. So that, they're holding in a lot of energy,
Right.
and they just don't know how to disperse it properly. But it evens out as you get older, I think. And then a lot of people try to explain that poltergeist had something to do with adolescent people, and that's kind of true, but it's not completely true. And I kind of would like to address that. So one of the theories is that poltergeist was caused by females coming into adolescence.
Okay.
And they would say that once a female went from being a child into that early stages of becoming a woman, when she would start her cycle, when she would start transferring over, development and becoming like an independent woman, they would say that that's the point where the poltergeist happened. But I think that what really was going on with that in that situation is that people were saying that, and it was a misogynistic way of looking at a haunting that was really happening and defer what the people were saying was happening to the family. So like they would just say, oh, it's easy. You think about like you were saying in the 40s, 20s, 40s, 30s, it's easy to defer stuff on women and say the woman is causing this,
Right.
the woman is doing this, and that's how they would explain those poltergeist activities sometimes because they didn't understand what it was, but they would see a little girl here and go, oh, well, it's that girl there causing it, and so they would kind of like brush off what was truly happening, and they would not pay attention to how this haunting was actually affecting a family.
Right.
And so I think that's one thing that we need to change about the paranormal community is like it's not something you can defer or push onto one person. You have to find the root of the cause. And that's what I'd like to talk. That's what I hope that we could talk about on this podcast going forward, without being biased or, maybe getting rid of some of the cliche, so to speak. All right, and we're off. Welcome back. This is Eric again. I've got Wendy with me.
Hello.
So we left you a second ago at what feels like a second to you, the listener, and what is for us is probably the third take. And so here we are trying to redo this again. Hopefully it'll work out in the end. So how are you feeling again today, Wendy?
I'm great. How about you?
I'm feeling all right. So what I guess what I'm getting at is we had some pretty serious technical difficulties, but I guess since we're getting off the ground, it's not the worst thing in the world that can happen to us, right?
That's right.
So, all right. So what we'll do now is I think this is going to be the part of our show where we'll go into our story. And I had this grand scheme of what I wanted to do when I created this, and I decided that if I was going to do the podcast, I wanted to do like something big to start it off because I have to be excessive, to say the least. So, what I want to do is I want to talk about the way that people perceive like negative energy and demonic energy, and how pop culture affects how we think about it as far as like in terms of the paranormal. And so we're influenced by things that happen in pop culture all the time. A lot of the stuff that happens, like a lot of people's perception of, say, demonic activity, is based on, for instance, The Exorcist. The movie Exorcist changed a whole lot of stuff about how we perceive things, how we look at negative energy, how we look at people who are possessed, quote unquote, and how their house being haunted affects them, today. They're even kind of relying on what they learned from watching The Exorcist. So I asked you this before. I'm gonna ask you again. We've done this a couple times, but so I think you know what's coming. So what do you think of when I tell you the Church of Satan?
When I think of the Church of Satan, I envision people worshiping the devil, probably doing rituals or bringing ill will towards others with their, rituals and stuff.
Yeah, human sacrifice,
Yes.
like killing animals. And the truth is that that's just not the case, because that's not what happens. What you really have is you have there's three different types of the Church of Satan. You have the actual theistic Satanists who believe the devil as a demon or an entity. Then you have the other side, which are the atheist side of Satanism, and you know that itself is even broken down because you have the Temple of Satan and then Anton LaVey Satanists, and even between those there's differences. But what it all boils down to is all these sects have commandments that you live by, how you present yourself to the world, and a lot of it is about ego and how you perceive yourself and how you think like of your self-esteem. You know how like whereas they see it as the regular church wants to bring you down by saying you're weak and your devices are weak and it makes you weak and you need to be built up by leaning on this other like entity, whereas they believe you bring yourself up, you hold yourself accountable, make yourself like healthy, like because they even say make yourself beautiful for the world, and so they really focus on the individual as opposed to the group, and so
Interesting.
and so like they've even done things like after school programs for kids who are feeling oppressed because they're gay or trans, and they're doing things to help these like lesser these communities that don't have a voice every day. And I think no matter what religion you are, I think that's something that all religions can probably benefit from if they just pay attention, but they won't get past the name, the Satan itself. And so I'm not up here to preach about what your religion is or how you believe or how I want you to believe, but I want you to think about how things are perceived from the outside. Because if you're not Christian then you're going to look at Christian values differently. Or if you are Christian, you're going to look at other values differently. And so the point is, I think we all need to become tolerant of everybody and just step back and understand how people believe it. Just because they believe different from you doesn't make you a bad person.
Be accepting.
Exactly, yes. And and a lot of times I've heard people in the Church of Satan say that they use the name Satan, and it's a front to get a reaction, to make you say, okay, because they're anti the establishment, anti, you know, anti judgment against other people, and so they want you to get that reaction, and they want you to think, but a lot of people don't think about the way they're not pushed to think the way that they should think about it. They're pushed the way that they're taught to think about it.
Exactly.
And so I think that's kind of where I want to go with this because you know I'm always making Wendy watch these shows. I mean, we got shows that we're going to watch today, and I mean, so since we've got together, I'm sure her programming on television has changed a lot because I basically just watch nothing but paranormal stuff 24/7, and as you watch these shows, a lot of them, especially today, are really pushing the narrative that it's a demon in this place. It's a demon over here. This school has a demon. This church has a demon. This hospital has a demon.
Or this home.
This home has a demon. This person is possessed, and that's just not the case. When you walk into these places that are haunted like this, that are said to be haunted, it's not. It doesn't always have to be a demon. You have to realize that if for instance you walk into a place that's haunted and it's haunted by a human spirit, then humans are just as bad as demons because they can make themselves be perceived in a different way. Like you know the human psyche doesn't need another name to say that how bad they can be as people sometimes. And so you get these situations where even human spirits can become tricksters and make you think it's demons to have control over you. And so I want to start changing this narrative a little bit, that the way people think of how these hauntings happen, how they work. Now, the way that I understand it is to actually come across a demon is so rare, it's so minuscule that you're almost never going to come across it. You're almost never going to see it in a true haunting situation. But once you do see the demon, it is life changing. And you might think that some of these situations that's happened before are life changing, but they're nothing compared to the amount of balled up negative energy that is a true demonic force. And so, even like a lot of times, though, when people say, well, this house has a demon or negative energy, it's actually what it is elemental energies, which they in themselves are a type of spirit energy, not human spirit, but energy that uses natural elements to haunt, like air, wind, fire, and water. And gnomes are considered like elementals. Fairies can be considered elementals. I've heard of a lot of different like creatures being grouped into this, but elementals themselves are a massive force because they manipulate your environment around you. They change the air, they change the fire, they change the water. They use all these things against you to make you perceive how you're being haunted, and it can feel real intense because when that environment changes, if you've never been in a situation where this happens, let me tell you, that environment can change in a snap, and you know it. And these people, and these not people, but these elements can push that to the limit. And so, what I want to do now is I want to start talking about where exactly does the idea of Satan come from, and what we're gonna lead up to is demonic in popular culture today. So, as we all know, Easter's coming up, which Easter itself is pulled from a pagan holiday, Ostera. It's the rebirth of life. It's the season of fertility. Things like that's why we have the eggs. That's what eggs stand for. Eggs are fertility, and it's very feminine energy. And so, you know, a lot of the practices of Easter are pagan, and even how they determine when Easter falls, because it's based on the full moon cycle after it's the first full moon after the spring equinox. you know that?
I did not. I did not know that.
That's why Easter changes every year. It's never the same day because it's always based on the lunar cycle, and it can be as late as April 20th something, which this year it's on 420, and it can be as early as March 21st, depending on when the equinox and the full moon fall. So it can vary within a month. And but anyway, so when the early days of religion were being formed, specifically Christianity, they would pull from these other practices to make people more um, prone to come to their religion, because when you got a new religion, anything you have something that's new, you want to provide a service for people that says, hey, come look at us. We can do something similar to what you're used to, but we make it just a little different that maybe you'll enjoy what we're doing a little more than what these people are doing over here. And so they're going to start pulling from these other practices, and this helps shape and mold how religion is seen today. Now, the origin of Satan himself, okay, the origin of Satan himself comes from an ancient religion from what is ancient Persia, which is modern day Iran. Now, the religion is called Zoroastrianism, and it's one of the world's oldest religions. Um, Founded by the prophet Zarathustra. By the way, these words, some of these words are a little strange, and I don't speak the language. I'm doing the best I can, so don't at me, but bear with me. Uh, but this religion was founded by a prophet called Zarathustra, and he believed that he would receive messages from a supreme deity of God, or the supreme deity, which is the God of light, to him, called Ahura Mazda, or spelled like Mazda. Um, but this deity is the God of light. Now, it's one of the first times in history where the religion is monotheistic, which means that they believe in one God. Now, a lot of the ancient religions believe in many gods. You look at Romans, you look at Greeks. A lot of the natives had like primitive ideas of polytheistic. This is one of the first like monotheistic religions. Um, it dealt with dualism. It also had the battle between good and evil, which we see today in modern religion. It's like you have this supreme, beautiful, good guy in the sky, fighting all the evil that's down below. And all of that is a metaphor in itself. You have the good hero oppressing the evil down below. But so it had a dualism idea. Um, and the followers, they really had to choose, like, you know, what kind of life did you want to live? Did you want to be a good person? Did you want to be a bad person? And I think that they had some, I believe they even had commandments written out, like modern day. Um, in this religion, fire is considered a symbol of purity. I said that the deity, their god, was a god of light. And, we think of, in fact, spring coming up. Spring is the return of the light, because when we celebrate the winter, it's the dark days ahead, the harsh winter. But then spring comes, everything's vibrant, new, bright, beautiful, and so reborn, rebirth. Yes, the metaphor or the idea of Jesus dying and coming back is a complete rebirth of him as a new person, as a he transcended to being all all beautiful. And so, but the fire to them, like I said, is a symbol of purity. They would cremate the bodies to desecrate them, so that they would allow them to, move to the other side, to be purified and cleaned of all the negative that they've picked up throughout their life. And but after they died, they believed that their souls would go across this bridge, and this bridge was called the Chinrat Bridge, or Chinrat, Chinrat. And once you cross that bridge, it's kind of like climbing the stairs of heaven or transcending. And once you get to the other side, you kind of have to figure out where you're going to go based on how you lived your life. There was these, they would call them, what they described it as the deeds of your life. And those deeds would determine how you lived after you had died or transcended across the bridge. Now, that doesn't mean that they believed in hell, because hell doesn't really exist in religion until later on. But they definitely did have some sort of retribution for your actions in life. Um, yeah. Oh, this is interesting. I don't think I mentioned this last time, but they would build these temples that would go up as high to the sky as they possibly could, similar to like pyramids and stuff, and they call them sky temples. Once the body would die, they would take the bodies to the highest point of the Sky Temple and leave them there for vultures to come to consume what was left of their body. And it was a way of giving back to nature. And like I said, they would also cremate and burn them.
The cycle of life.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So they basically like make sure that nothing was wasted. Even when a human or a person died, you weren't being wasted. You were given back to nature. I found that kind of interesting. The sky temple thing is pretty cool. I think I remember seeing some sky temples in like Thailand or something like that. The Buddhists have sky temples also, and it's so that they can get to the highest part of to the land. Now, they have this holy book, and it's called the Avesta. And in its early influence, it has an early influence of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. But largely the concepts of heaven and hell and angels and the final judgment are in this book. So it's pretty interesting that these modern day concepts were thought of so long ago. All right, so you know, fast forward to modern day, we have modern day religion, Christianity in general. I wanted to figure out where did the idea of Satan come from? Where did he start to show up on the scene? So I wondered, where was his first mention in the Bible? And the first time he's actually mentioned is in the book of Numbers 22:22. Now, I think that's kind of interesting in itself because when you have repetitive numbers like that, they're usually representative of angels or positive energy. Especially because I think 222 was one of those numbers. Um, but anyway, the scripture that first mentions Satan I found interesting, so I think I'd like to read that. It says, Balaam's departure around the wrath of Elohim, and the angel of Yahweh stood in the road as a Satan against him. Now, it doesn't mean that Satan is an actual entity. It means that there is a force against the angel Yahweh. Or the angel Yahweh is the force against the Elohim. And so the original interpretation of Satan itself means force against. So it's like pushback. It doesn't mean that there's a person with a pitchfork. It's just a feeling or a way of pushing back against someone. Now, he's mentioned again in Job 1 and 2, and he appears among the angels called the Son of God to accuse Job of acting with integrity. So this is the first time you see Satan with the angels doing something he's doing angelic work. He's like going to Job and accusing him of, you haven't done what you're supposed to be doing. You're not living like you're supposed to do. In the First Chronicles 21:1, the first generic term of Satan actually appears. His name, they actually named the demon itself as Satan. Isaiah 14:12 says, "How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning?" This is the first time you hear the name Lucifer in the Bible, and it actually talks about how he's fallen from heaven. And today we refer to him as a fallen angel, or an angel with his wings burned off. And this is the first time that actually mentions him, falling from grace. And then in Revelation 12:9, he's described as a dragon and an ancient serpent. So he doesn't really even appear as a goat figure or a hood figure in the Bible. But other ideas that people believe was actually the devil was, they believe that he was tempting Eve in the Garden of Eden to eat the apple. And like I said before, Satan comes from the Hebrew word called, or I didn't say this, but Satan comes from the Hebrew word called ha-Satan, which means to oppose or an adversary. His angelic name was Samuel, and which means wraith or venom of God. So he was the person who would do God's will. When God say those people need to be punished, he would send Samuel to strike them down. That was Satan's job. What do you think about that?
I think that's pretty cool, but have we not been told that his angelic name was Lucifer?
No.
Okay.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yep. Like I said, it doesn't even mention Lucifer until Isaiah, and it just says, "Oh, Lucifer, son of the morning."
Okay.
And it's not until we get to the medieval times when you have some medieval art paintings that he starts to take on the form that we know today: hoof, feet, devilish, horns, And so, he starts to appear as, animalistic and a beast with horns, hooves, tail, and wings. And also, a lot of that kind of taken from the dragon. The way that the wings themselves look like bat wings or dragon wings. If you think about it. Um, so I think that's kind of interesting. But the most famous depiction of him is by a man named John Milton in 1667, which I thought that was also funny, close to 666. In this story called Paradise Lost. Now, Paradise Lost I guess it's considered a poem. It's two separate stories. You have one story that deals with the fall of man and the fall of an angel. So it talks about how humans are high, this angel is high, and they fall from grace. And in the second part of it, you have one of the most beautiful of all angels, Lucifer, rebels against God and becomes Satan, the adversary. And that's essentially what this tale is about. And so that's kind of where our modern day depictions come from. You also have uh, writings like Dante's Inferno, which gives us 7 levels of hell. Talks about the little demons, fire, brimstone. And so Satan, even though he wasn't in the Bible as much, people have taken literature and thoughts and created this figure that puts up this evil being that's out in the world today, and that's how he's being perceived uh, in the eyes of people around. And so as we go forward, I just want you to think about, modern society, pop culture affects how we perceive these things. And so I think that's where we're going to stop today. But next time, we're going to go into how in the 80s, 70s, and 80s, the satanic panic really drove people into what I call madness and a little bit of hysteria. And they really started to single people out. There were people who were persecuted wrongly because of this. There were people who lost their lives because of this. There were crimes that happened that they just wrote off as Satanists instead of doing actual detective work. And so we're going to dive a little bit into that next week. And I think this is where I'm going to let you go. But before I do that, I just want to ask you one thing. Please make sure you rate and review this podcast. It helps us get more listeners on all your favorite platforms. And the more people that listen, the more that we can do this, and the better we'll become. And we'll have more stories for you. So we would really appreciate if you would just take the time to help us get out there and help us get established and get a little fan base going, if you would. I have a Facebook page, the Hauntological Society. Excuse me. Uh, and we're on there. Come join us. Be mindful, be respectful. Everybody be set. Just want everybody to be yeah, positive. Uh, and I also have an email. It's the hauntologicalsociety@gmail.com. Send us your questions, ideas, thoughts. Do you have something that's going on in your house? Let's try to figure out what's happening. Maybe we can work this out together. We can discover what's happening. Um, I'm not an expert by any means, but if I can't come up with an idea, we're going to try to get you to the right people who can help you cleanse your house out. And so, with that, I guess I will leave you. Thank you for listening, and come back next time, and we'll do this again. I'm Eric.
I'm with you.
We'll see you again.